Hi guys, welcome to season 2 of Tea with ALSA, where we sit down with inspiring individuals from different fields to discuss their journey to success, the individual habits they rely on, and the advice they have for an entrepreneurially minded audience. This season, we have an exciting lineup of guests, including accomplished entrepreneurs, industry leaders, and experts in their field. We'll be diving into their stories, uncovering the challenges they faced, and learning about the strategies they used to overcome them. So grab a cup of tea and join us as we explore the mindsets, habits, and strategies of those who have achieved success in business across various different industries. We hope that by listening to our guests, you'll be inspired to take your own journey to success, and that the advice and insights shared on the show will be valuable to you as you navigate your own entrepreneurial path. We're happy to kick off this new season and can't wait for you to join us on this exciting journey. Let's get started.
So, science.
Science, yes. I've been obsessed with science since I was a really, really young child. It's so cliche for me to say, you know how everyone's in UCAS, don't write. I've loved science since I was 5. Literally don't write it. But it's genuinely true. And I think that's partly because of the fact that every single weekend my father and my 2 younger siblings and we'd sit down and we'd do maths and science, where we'd explore different topics within science and tech and engineering, all of those, and that kind of propels you forward, I think. So I'm lucky in the sense I never got pushed to do anything, but it's nice to have extra support.
Sure. When did you find out that you first really loved science?
I think it was cringely enough, one Christmas, when I got a whole Christmas set of chemistry equipment, and everyone was oh my god, that's so weird. I loved it. It was genuinely something, because at home I have a whole cupboard of only science equipment, and I do my laboratory experiments and things like that. So it's just kind of expressing your passions in a way. And since then, I've just loved it.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell me a little bit about you yourself, kind of, what you're trying to do with, obviously, based on science, which is your initiative, and you've done it at such a young age. Just kind of, knit the tapestry for us a little bit. Tell us, how that all began.
Of course. So initially, I never expected Based on Science to become a non-profit. Weirdly enough. But it kind of started as a mentoring scheme during the pandemic when I was incredibly bored, nothing to do, first year of A-levels, so chill. And all my friends were just kind of watching Netflix and things like that. But at that point, I'd basically read everything, watched everything, as most people. And so I was okay, let me just start to do something. So I noticed I had a whole list of things, kind of issues with the education in Kosovo, which is quite a long list, but I could only tackle...
We've got enough time to get into it.
Definitely. So I could only start tackling the STEM side, which was essentially, there's not enough opportunities, not enough even textbooks, equipment, anything over there, and it's so ridiculous. But then we are only a small country. Makes sense. So we kind of started by, I basically had the initiative to pair 100 students from Kosovo with 100 PhD researchers across the UK. Okay. So I sent literally 200 emails to different researchers.
Just grinding out.
Oh yeah, literally going crazy. Everyone was so do you want to watch this movie with me? The online Netflix, you can watch someone. Yeah. I was no, I have another email to send. So it was crazy. But after I sent those, I started getting a lot of responses, and so many people were interested, and I was shocked. So I was okay, this is something that could propel and keep going forward. And then we had 3 weeks of mentoring sessions. I hand paired everybody. So I was okay, this is what you do.
So you're definitely a meticulous person.
I think so. Slightly maybe control freak ass, but it worked in the end. Yeah. And then after I got them all together, and they started talking about different STEM subjects. So I had to hand pick. So a student, if they registered for an engineering course, I was okay, let me find an engineer, PhD researcher. I had a lot from Edinburgh before I was in St Andrews, so I guess it's foreshadowing, right? A lot from LSE, a lot from Queen Mary as well. So I was really impressed at the community coming together. And then after I got all this positive feedback and everything, wow, I was okay, I could do something more with this, definitely. And I noticed that all the students were asking me, are there any more opportunities? Right. I was not right now, but maybe I could create more. So then I pulled some of the alumni, as in students from Kosovo, and and I started to build a whole team together. And as of September 2020, it became like an official nonprofit. So it's crazy, but now we've been working towards like our common goal of kind of creating more opportunities, more resources, everything like that, events since 2020. So going strong.
Amazing. Have you been surprised at the kind of speed you've been able to achieve such impressive results?
Yes and no, because sometimes I think I could keep going a little bit more. Like that's like, I guess, a kind of a toxic trait in a way, where it's like you keep thinking, but I could have done that, like comparing yourself to other people. But that's like part of the learning curve. And that's kind of what I've come to self-manage and realize, wait, hold on, you are literally only 18. Calm down a little bit. But the support has been like incredible, and like the build up and the amount of students that tell me, oh my gosh, like, I never would have had this opportunity if it wasn't for you. So it's like little messages like that, and collabing with like you guys.
Those little messages of the support that you get along the way. That's just kind of, I think everybody needs that kind of validation in their life to, say what they're doing is actually meaningful, is actually benefiting other people.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, it's quite hard when like you don't have a team of like professionals. That's another thing, because it's hard to kind of train people to do what you want, because you always assume they know what they're doing, but then it's like, wait, let me go and check back, and like let me realize that they actually understand. So, but that's like another effective way of building up in terms of leadership. So,
yeah, I think another thing is like, especially when you have volunteers, it's like, they're not employees.
Exactly.
They're volunteers.
Yeah.
So, they have their own lives, their own schedules, and maybe you as someone who's kind of running it all, you think, can't really tell them to do that.
That's exactly.
I was like, I'm not putting money in their pocket for me to be telling them this.
Exactly, yeah. It's quite tough, and then you're like, wait, this is like, we're all students. We only have a team of 30, so we're not quite massive.
It's still a lot though.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. And I like to incorporate like all different ethnicities, so it's not just for Albanians. It's like everyone around the globe can join. So that's like a later stage. But it's quite good.
But at the moment, probably primarily focused on Albania.
Exactly, that's it. So we have like, we're trying to focus on like all the Balkans, but right now we're like targeting Kosovo first, and then moving on to everyone else. It's like, if you don't have a solid base,
fantastic. I mean, you spoke about how you just kind of like, only 18 years old, starting out. I think you said you're 19 now.
Yeah.
Do you feel that kind of pressure and burden at such a young age? And if so, kind of like, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so it is quite a big pressure actually, because you think I could use this time to do something else. Like, I know it is pretty productive anyway, but it's like I could like go on holiday or do something else, like meet up with friends. So it is really time consuming. But having a good circle around you helps, definitely. And like, I've even like inspired some of my close friends to kind of join in. Now they understand, they're like, wow, okay, that's a heavy load of work, So it's quite burdenous, but the way I manage it is sort of like having like, not exactly a set written schedule, but if anything, like organizing my brain. Okay, these couple of hours I'll do this, take a break, go learn a language, go do something new, go outside, like leave basically. And I always make sure to like go to a different cafe and do work, and like, even if it's just changing the environment, it needs to be something different. But other than that, I think it's just like kind of delegating time in your mind, not physically, because I'm not like a timetable, I hate that, but like in your mind.
Exactly. And you only have 24 hours in the day, so it's kind of important not to like burn yourself out. Exactly. And particularly with like uni work. I know it's like only your first year, but did you find yourself at points a little bit just like, it's a lot?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I know it's like, because first year in Scotland is quite different. So it's literally like a gap year, but with a bit of work in.
Right.
And especially since I had exams online, lectures online, so it was kind of a bit more of a chill year than.
Sure. So you had a lot of time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did. But then there was also a point when I was like, okay, I need to actually do well in these exams, even if they are online. So I had to like delegate roles to people and understand that they have exams too. And it was sort of like, okay, are you having an exam? No. Okay, you can do this. So it was kind of like role delegation. But like I said, also like changing the environment and making sure to prioritize definitely what you need. Because exams come first.
Exams come first.
Yeah.
Indeed. Are you, obviously thinking about second year, it's obviously going to be a bit more intense.
Oh, definitely.
Than the first year. So do you have like any plans or any strategies to kind of like combat that?
Yeah, so my strategy is to fill like all the main team roles so that we have like a very solid base, so that I know I can trust them with like my full heart if I need to like step back for like a month for exams. because like we always allow kind of breaks and time to step away from the organisation because it's all volunteering, like you said. So, and there'll have to be like, again, role delegation, being like, please do this, I can't this week. And maybe just getting more volunteers in. Because I guess a bigger team, you can like split the task load.
Right.
Like a problem shared is a problem half, I guess. So
exactly.
just basically prioritize.
Yeah. Then obviously when it comes to when you have a bigger team, there's more people
that's the thing to manage.
Yeah, like it's one of those ones where I think especially at such a young age, it's like very difficult to like constantly manage that and manage your studies as well.
Definitely.
Just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about what actually based in science is, what it does, and what you're trying to achieve with it in the future. So I'll give you free rein to just kind of lay the plot of the land.
Yeah, there's quite a bit there. So Based in Science is basically like a non-profit to be registered very soon in the UK. For youth, by youth. That's kind of like the slogan we use. So we are literally all under the age of like 24 on the team. And it's not like forcefully, it's just like how we've kind of come together as a group. And we just work together to kind of create free STEM resources in English and Albanian, with more languages coming soon as well, because we're trying to like go global. That's the end goal. And the end goal would be to like create scholarships and different things through funders here in the UK. It's basically just like the first organisation to bridge a gap for STEM between UK and Kosovo initially. And now it's going to be like kind of Balkans type of thing. And we literally have like a team. We have like 3 sections of the team. We have an events team, an outreach team who are like ambassadors, and they go to promote Based in Science more, go to events and like talk. And then we have a social media team, which we've had to like rebrand because we need to kind of match the aesthetic of the social media to our brand, if that makes sense. So it's quite hard to kind of reach that level because we're not professionals, we're all students, and it's nice to kind of see everybody's like abilities kind of coincide. So the fact that we have like student graphic designers from schools in Kosovo, it's like we've had like an incredible outreach system, and I feel like we're creating so many different opportunities because students in Kosovo never expect to join something so international because of like the visa issue, not being able to go to different countries. So it's quite hard, but it's like a really good opportunity, I think, for them to be able to stick it on their LinkedIn, on their CV, even if it's just for that. Like they have experience. And we've been like I said, we've been doing Based in Science work for about 2 years now. Hopefully we continue to get bigger and bigger. And
you know, our man behind the camera I heard his ears and eyes popped up when we said marketing. So, I mean, when we're talking about marketing, it's obviously a completely different field to science. Like, how have you found that transition? Because obviously you need like a different skill set. I mean, there are similarities, right? In terms of, like,
of course.
The analytical side of it, you know, looking at the data, analysing it, interpreting it, finding out what you can do better. But how has that been for you in terms of trying to grow the Based in Science brand?
That is the hardest part, genuinely. I think because I like to not micromanage. That's a goal. So I don't want to keep on doing everything myself. Because you burn yourself out, number one. Number two, like you need to give other people opportunities. So I've had to like go on a full-on hunt like a year ago and find proper people for my marketing team. So currently my marketing director, Amy, she is in Bath University. And she does like marketing for the UK like space agency. So she really knows her stuff and she's on a placement there now. So finding people like that and literally using LinkedIn was my savior. Like the amount of people I've connected to, the support I've received because of LinkedIn is like unreal. So I don't think I'd be able to do it all myself. Marketing is like crazy. It's like something you have to learn, like sit down and literally study, I think. So I know myself I'm not professional there. So that's why I get other people in. But I also use like YouTube and like reading different books, like finding literature on it to like clue myself up. So I know what Amy is talking about when she tells me. So I don't like to be like, okay, she's throwing the phrase at me. What does she say? You know? So kind of cluing yourself up and just learning along the way. Like it's all a process. I would never have known how to be a leader if I didn't like do it. You know? It's all about like practice and practicality.
100%. Coming back onto Based in Science, you've definitely grown so quickly and you've had a few opportunities, like for example, going to Kosovo, being the Prime Minister.
Oh my God, that was incredible. Albania is absolutely like, he's incredible, genuinely no words. And everything that he's dealt with, like even politically and personally as well, you can really see how much of a good leader he is. And the fact that I like randomly sent loads of leaders like a couple of emails being like, okay, so I have this organization, do you want to like talk to me about it? And then like a year later, it happened to be a day before I was flying back to London, his PA responded to me and she was like, okay, so we have this slot, come in tomorrow. I was like, what?
Ticket gone.
No, literally, I was like, okay. No, but it was like 2 hours before my flight.
Wow.
Did
you end up cancelling it?
No, like I actually did it.
No way.
It was insane. Like I literally had to get my uncle to drive fast. He probably broke rules. Like sorry, but like it was insane. And yeah, like we made it, and he was very welcoming. I met loads of different staff, and he just wanted to know more about basic science, how I started it. And he also knew my father because in '99 they both organised a youth protest in Jakova. So he'd heard of my father, but he was like, wait, like the surname, I'm making some links, you know. But he didn't realise he'd never met him like properly. So when he heard about basic science, he was like, I'm honoured, like this is incredible. And I was like, I'm honoured to meet you. Like it's crazy. It was really crazy. And he was like, you have my ongoing support for everything for basic science. He said, you're welcome to come into the office anytime, just like drop me an email. And that was like the biggest one of my life, genuinely.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting how, especially back home, like because we're such a small nation, like everyone's so like well connected.
They really are.
Yeah. So how important is it for people back home as well to kind of support initiatives here and vice versa, to kind of utilize and continue to grow those connections?
I think it's really important. Like reaching out to different like organizations like ours, I feel like is the best way to kind of make a step forward, because without experience, there's no way that people in Kosovo can compete in the job market from like the Western world, I guess.
Right.
It's like a disadvantage to them.
Because it's so small.
It's tiny. Exactly. And the fact is, like, yeah, we have Dwelly, Parita, all of these characters, but there's like no direct link to them, if that makes sense. Like they did it off their own backs as well. So they need to kind of, students in Kosovo need to try and like reach out to organizations, kind of connect themselves. And I know loads and loads of students do that. They're like, one student who's applying for medicine has about like 10 different organizations she's part of.
Yeah.
And it's all about just building up the experience, but like kind of utilizing platforms and connecting with people that you would never expect to. Because you never know what happens, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think main thing is to kind of show your voice. Like I remember when I was out there, and there was a general like air of pessimism when it comes to like Kosovo. And it's like, oh, ska gifto, ska Marie, etc. So that, and it's like, you know, the only way that we're going to stop the brain drain and stop people leaving and coming back is to actually provide them opportunities in the country. You know? So they don't feel like, oh, I need to go somewhere. Because to be honest, if you ask most Albanian students, they want to stay in the country.
Oh, they do. Like most of my team members are like, we want to be doctors, but we want to do it here. But then there's a misconception that everybody wants to leave, you know? So it's just like you said, the brain drain is hard to compete with because they just really haven't had the opportunity to stay. Like if you were trapped in a country for so long, no visas, why would you want to stay, theoretically looking at it? But then I guess that's why the improvement of like education, new governments coming in, it's changing around like it is. But I think there's a long way to go.
I mean, you speak glowingly about this government. I know not everybody speaks glowingly about this government, but that's politics, right?
It is true.
But in terms of like your opinion, what do you think is different about this government compared to the rest in terms of, you know, what you're doing and kind of how they're helping students in particular, science, education?
So that's actually a really good question. Like not all governments are incredible, and I don't agree with every single view. I just particularly like I've been recruited as a leader, and I know not many people do. But I think they've actually tried to invest more into education this time, which is really interesting. They've set up like Girls in ICT Day in Kosovo, and I was like, this is amazing. I've never seen like the previous couple of governments do so. And I think it just shifted in priorities. I think that's what it depends on. Because I guess previously they were trying to build up a war-torn nation. Like yes, education should be a priority back then, but it wouldn't be your first point of call. It'd be like kind of investing into businesses that lost everything. You know, so I guess education came afterwards. It's getting there. It's still not perfect. Maybe the next couple of governments will like perfect it. But I think that's basically.
What are some of the issues that you found with the education system in Kosovo, and what are you as an organisation trying to do to help them out?
Okay, good question.
We like good questions.
Yeah, I know. I was like, it's really making me think. I like that. So the number one thing I found is the lack of like equipment in schools and laboratories. So whereas here you do, if you were in A levels or even GCSE level, you'd be forced, whether you wanted to or not, to do like experiments at least once a week. With like, they'd pull out the like green or yellow or red trays of like the flasks and everything like that for chemistry specifically. They just don't have that. So like, I've genuinely asked, and that's why I like having kind of diverse from different secondary schools and kind of social status as well, just to find out exactly what it's like living there.
Right.
And they've also, they've never like actually handled equipment. So this is high school, like, and below. They've never seen a piece of scientific equipment. And like, if you think about it, these people are going to university. They're going to go and compete, hopefully, with the job market in the Western world. If they've never seen an equipment, and they're trying to be like, I don't know, a doctor.
They're so far behind.
So far behind.
Like,
yeah.
You know, trying to compete and trying to just,
exactly.
you know, like just even the kind of, I'm just thinking kind of like safety procedures.
Exactly.
They won't know how to do
Absolutely
that.
not.
They won't be able to build on any knowledge because they don't have any practical experience.
Exactly.
So,
and they don't know how to write like scientific papers. They only get taught this in the first year of uni, and I think that's ridiculous because unlike lab reports, we learned that in like year 7.
Right, just like the basics, like
literally the basics. And also things like having literature and textbooks, they're all outdated because I went around and I toured a couple of schools. They're from like the 90s. Who is going to learn with like that sort of kind of old backward type of writing? Because back then half the stuff weren't even discovered. Because science like advances incredibly quickly. So things like that. And the way I'm trying to kind of help is by pairing with like University of Pristina and going to their lab section. And the Rochester Institute of Technology, going to their kind of labs and reaching out to the like, I think it's like person investigators and principal investigators who are like the leaders of the labs, and asking them if you have any spare equipment, because they genuinely waste so much equipment. All labs do, because after they have to change them like in accordance with the rules, but they're not like bad pieces of equipment. They can be reused again. Or kind of creating partnerships from the UK and bringing like spare equipment to possible.
You know what it is? It's like our mums, you know when you have like the old like biscuit bowls.
Yeah, exactly.
Put, like, their sewing equipment.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly.
Or like like old water bottles. Like no, don't throw that away. I can use it.
You can reuse it. Exactly. Or like the bag inside a bag under like the sink. It's like reusing bags and stuff. That's exactly what it is. So it's just about kind of. And I guess that's like good sustainability in a way. So just kind of connecting it all and making schools a bit better than they usually are.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, we have kind of like, I suppose in our culture, like a good basis for sustainability because we use things and this and that. But even when I go to Kosovo now, like it's slightly off topic, but I look at kind of like the amount that we waste in terms of like, just like when you see like rubbish in the streets. I think that as well, we do need to kind of foster a culture of sustainability because if we don't have that much to begin with, then we've got to use what we have.
To utilise every resource. Exactly, and it's about kind of just doing that connection and making it like obvious that yes, you're not going to get the most brightest, like the newest piece of equipment, but like something. And kind of, it's going to be harder to kind of ingrain that in the curriculum. Because that's something that's not already there. So it's not like a typical thing where like in the UK you'd have, okay, do an experiment this week in accordance with the GCSEs. They don't have the same sort of system. So I think like curriculum rewriting is the next step after that, like getting teams together to sit down and like professionals, like panels and things like that.
When you were out there, did you see like kind of any, maybe not positives, I mean there's positives and negatives and everything, but just kind of things that you looked at in the education system and you think, this is encouraging.
Yeah. Actually, quite a few. One of them was like, it really promotes the idea of like free learning, which is so interesting because you learn that in sixth form, but you don't learn that kind of younger here. Whereas over there, you're kind of slightly freer to go and explore topics you enjoy. And that's why I think there's a lot of like really, really bright students. Like, I think our IQ must be quite high. Maybe not with the PISA test, which is like the learning test, but like genuinely, it's like really high. And I think it's from free learning, but also a natural curiosity, because like the water and country, that type of that idea. It's like you want to push for what your parents didn't have.
I think Albanians as well, we're just some loads of people. So
that is very true.
Curiosity is like just fun.
Very true, but it works in our favour because like we have like all of these apps coming out from Kosovo and like these different like technologies that maybe wouldn't have happened elsewhere. So it's just like that internal drive, and like the education system is really good at like fostering that and like pushing kids to kind of develop a passion. But yeah, of course there are like negatives, but looking on the positive side, things like that, and kind of also really encouraging youth to look at technology. I think, especially since we have like the fastest like working Wi-Fi in the whole Balkans, which I literally discovered a couple of days ago. It's like impossible.
You know who has the fastest Wi-Fi in Europe? Romania.
Really?
They've got the fastest Wi-Fi.
I didn't know that.
So outside of obviously our little thing, Romania is the fastest. This country's actually one of the worst.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you saw even now when we're coming in, like you get like one bar of Wi-Fi.
No, literally, on the underground you have nothing. I mean, yes, underground, but like still.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. It's just there's like a lot of kind of desire to learn, which I love. Definitely a desire to learn, but hopefully we can change the idea of a desire to leave as well, to kind of, you know, stay within Kosovo and to develop your own nation, I guess.
Yeah, and you know, looking at the other side, looking at the diaspora, obviously you want to kind of arrest that desire to leave. But also, how important is it for people like us to go back and contribute, even if it's not necessarily going there and staying for like an extended period or returning, even if it's just like kind of bringing expertise that we have from where we come from and bringing it back.
I think that's like one of the most important things, like whether that be like in terms of monetary values, like we're boosting the economy every time we go back for like holidays and things like that, because of flights and, you know, buying hotels and things like that. But it's also like kind of putting money back into the development of the education over there, because kind of without the donations, where would Kosovo be if you think about it? Because there's only so much the economy can have. So yeah, I think it's just like going back, sharing the love as well, going back to kind of inspire kids and doing like different like camps, like different like brain camps and STEM camps and things like that, just like sharing the knowledge again in like different ways that they don't have the opportunity to, I think. So it's quite important.
Yeah, I mean, tell us about these camps, like what goes on there, like what do you get out of it, like, you know, how do you feel when you kind of see like the idea that you had, you see it to life and you see like these young kids, like they're literally gaining so much out of this, like just try and articulate.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hard because I did this like a while back, like, just before Basic Science became like a proper organisation. And it was just so nice to collect like loads of young kids out of nowhere in Pristina, just to be like, okay, this is what they love. And you can see how passionate they are. You can see like how much of a desire they have to learn. They're so inquisitive. Like maybe it goes to the nosy bit, like you said. But other than that, like it's really incredible. And even like seeing the parents afterwards be like, thank you for this. Like, because it's completely free and it's not something that we like to monetize. So I don't agree with the idea of monetizing when you like are fortunate enough to have it. Like that's another thing. But I think it's just so like inspirational. And like the kids have come back to me like a couple of years later being like, I remembered what you said. Like I used that in school today. I was like, that's incredible. Yeah, it is. And then kind of off the back of that, we started opening like STEM clubs in Kosovo. So that's like our next goal, to open like a STEM club in every single primary school in Kosovo. Because you know how here you have after school, you can do like, I don't know, you can stay like an hour later until like 4 p.m, play like with this, with that, or like learn from teachers about STEM. But over there they have nothing. Like they don't even, some schools don't have clubs like at all. And it's just, it's crazy to me, I think. And that's why I wanted to kind of change that around. And with Lisa, one of my members on the team from Pristina, she's helping me like write everything out, send millions of more emails to head teachers. Even there's been like some resistance because some teachers are like, why? Like, why do you want to do that? And I'm like, but you've never had that, so of course you wouldn't understand why. But once we introduced the idea, it started being like, okay, this is good.
Do you find that type of resistance like frustrating? Like I know old people, like they're kind of like set in their own ways, particularly like our older generation.
Definitely.
You know, you try and bring a new idea and they're like,
exactly.
Like, what are you doing that for? Just, you know, focus on what you're doing.
Exactly. In the UK. They're like, you just stay there, you have it all good there. It's tough, but in a way, like it pushes me forward because I'm like, just because you said no, I want to do it now. That's like my mentality, and it's like resisting against their resistance. So building up like a
Why do you think they have such a resistance?
I think it's partly because of the like everything they've kind of struggled with during the war. So that's like a mental health type of thing. And mental health is still a taboo over there. And actually one of the students from the STEM clubs wrote in a letter because they had to talk about like, career orientation.
Sure.
And in that letter, she was like, I want to be a psychologist because you're helping me break the idea that mental health is a taboo, like addressed directly to me. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So you can see that it's like a massive taboo over there still. And definitely because of the war, like that has tremendous effects that people don't realize. Like you wouldn't acknowledge it, you know. And I think it's also just like they've suffered so much, and I guess maybe every single government has tried to promise them something new and they haven't delivered. It is very much political, and the fact that the visas being stuck in, like think about being literally isolated. You can leave to like 3 different countries like Turkey and like Albania nearby, you know. Like it's tough because we have the liberty, so we can talk and we can be like it's nice, you know. But I think it's just like the promise of government not delivering. And it's like, okay, here's another one.
And maybe it's like a defense mechanism where it's like, you know, I don't want to get too excited about anything, so let me just say no so that I'm not like disappointed.
That's what it is. It's definitely a defense mechanism. And it's hard to break that barrier, but I think that's one of the like strategies that we need to target the parents. Like we literally need to set up like conferences for them and be like, okay, this is what we do. This is how we're going to achieve it, and we will deliver, giving them actual goals, because that's how people work. And so they can like tick it off afterwards and be like, okay, yes, she did that correctly, you know. So breaking that barrier is the hardest. I think I've broken quite a few. I like to think, because a lot of people. So I think it even goes back to like personal family type of thing. So it's like both grandmas being like having that stereotypical idea that she should just be like, I don't know, not exactly a housewife, but you know, that type of thing. So having the mentality, but then kind of going on like different TV stations and talking and then watching it has kind of made them realize, okay, STEM maybe could be the future for young girls, you know. Because like it's another stereotypical thing, especially like for grandmas and grandfathers and things like that. They were all married young and they've had children young, but like that's not the pathway of the modern generation. I mean, if it is, and that's your personal thing, you know. But that's like another taboo to change, that STEM can be for young girls as well. Like it's not.
So it's just kind of thing you just want to open up the pathway.
Exactly. Just like kind of be like a guiding light, I guess, to show, look, you can do this too. And yes,
there's another option.
Exactly. That there is always like light at the end of the tunnel. Like even if you are trapped in something or in like a different situation, you can use different outlets. Or in a country. You can use different like outlets to express like.
So essentially providing a space where you can, you know, provide people that space to express their creativity.
Exactly.
Is science then creative for you?
Yeah, definitely. Because like there's different pathways of science. So you can, I guess the stereotypical people think, okay, science like in a lab. So you're just doing this boring thing, you're pipetting this boring stuff into a conical flask. But that's not like it at all, you know? Because you have to, if you think about it, you have to use your mind to be like, okay, like in which method am I going to do this particular like experiment? So not only are you developing your own experiments and like, you're kind of creating your own pathway for yourself. But if you think about it, STEM is not just sitting down in a lab. It could be like opening a biotech company. It could be, and that's quite creative, you have to manage people. It could be turning it into a non-profit. Like, again, like leadership skills, that's quite creative. So I think it just depends in what way you consider science, because there's so many different branches. It's not just like one way. You can go so
and there's different skills that you have to use.
Definitely. And like a lot of people started incorporating like STEAM. So you're including like science, tech, engineering, art, and then maths.
Oh, so it's like STEAM.
Yeah, like actual STEAM. So they're trying to like bridge the gap between science and art. That's another potential way to go.
Do you not do that?
The art side, no. We don't talk about that side. If we talk about graphic design, potentially, that's about it.
No, fair enough. Let's kind of talk a bit about you and kind of your relationship with science. I mean, you love it, but is there any part of science where you're like, bothered, or like, would you find like particularly like challenging?
So naturally, funnily enough, I'm not a mathematical person at all. So you think, okay, you like science, okay, good. So a lot of us then. So naturally you think, okay, you like science, you should like maths too, but that's absolutely not true. Like I'm just not a mathematical person. It does not compute. I'm more of like an English, like literature. So I guess that's how the different skill set comes in. because that allows you to think more creatively. Because if you think about it, like writing stories, you need like loads of brain power for that and loads of creativity. Whereas in maths, I don't know, people enjoy it. Personally, no. And I guess for that reason, chemistry is slightly harder than usual. Biology for me is like quite easy, interesting. No offense.
I mean, because you're studying like the natural processes.
Exactly.
It's like there's no numbers required. You just see what happens, and then
exactly. It just like flows. And it's kind of because it's very much tangible. That's another thing. It's like, okay, like biology, you're learning about the fingers, like they're there in front of me, I can see them. If it's like concepts like chemistry, you're looking at like the volume of blood in a body. I mean, how are you supposed to like go and like look at that physically?
Or even physics, where it's like, you know, like theoretical theories, you have to test them out using mathematical equations and mathematical equations.
Exactly, they coincide. I like that about STEM a lot. It's like very cohesive. They can kind of flow together. So if you know one, you know the other. And I guess that's what helped me with university, because I did all 3 A levels of like biology, chemistry, and physics. And they thought I was crazy.
You are the STEM girl.
I'm the STEM girl. So they thought I was crazy, but it worked out in the end. Because in first year we did a lot of physics, chemistry in chemistry, and nobody got it. And I was like, okay, did this in A level, we're good. So it's kind of just like they all flow together really well. So
And like, what's your favorite thing about it? Like, why does it constantly why are you drawn to it?
I think partly because like if you think about science, especially biology, even just biology in general, you can like kind of look at discovering new things, because there are so many different parts of our bodies that we don't know about. Like apparently there's like 30% of our brain that we don't know about, and it's literally in our minds thinking. Like that just consciousness, exactly. And the fact that we don't know and we're conscious about it is like so weird. And it's the idea of like you can find out your cells in your body, just like looking at how the processes work inside of us. And it's really exciting, because it's like I'm literally functioning right now because of my cells. Like it gives me existential like crises. But it's like,
do you ever think about existential crises?
Yeah, definitely. So it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm literally a person and I'm on like a floating rock. Like it's so weird to think about. Like if you zoomed out so far, we are nothing. We are literally a speck of like dust. So weird.
What's your biggest existential crisis? Like, what do you think about at night? It's like, like just you wake up in the middle with like sweats.
Sweat. I think it's that actually, and it's just the fact that we are like actually existing, and there's like been people before us, and there's people to come after us, and like, sorry to put everyone to an existential crisis, but it's like it's really interesting. It's like we're literally functioning. Our brain is thinking thoughts. Like, and suddenly you become like aware that you're breathing, and it's like, okay, wow, this is weird, you know.
You have like that Cartesian kind of doubt where it's like, I think that's where I am.
Exactly.
Do you ever think we'll get to the bottom of consciousness?
Yeah, I think so. The way technology has advanced, the past 50 years have been astounding, like if you think about it. So I think give it 30 more years, if you think about things like the metaverse, I mean, that's getting dangerously close to like replicating human consciousness. So I definitely think, especially with the evolution of our brains, the evolution of mankind as a species, we have evolved so much. Like we were never supposed to have this big of a brain. I don't think. So it's just like we're creating these opportunities that will allow us to discover consciousness.
Do you think we'll hit that wall though?
Yeah, I think we are hitting every day. Like literally every day. It's like, but I don't think there's particularly like a wall at the end. I think it's going to be like a loop.
Right.
So we think we found the answer, and we're like, okay, no, it's this one, it's this one. So potentially a wall, but I like to call it a loop, I think. So we'll get there eventually.
Because you're a scientist, I'll ask like a metaphysical question. Like, do you believe in like souls?
I think so. So that's why I'm like, that's quite an interesting question, because it's like, okay, as a scientist, you think no, it's just like physical. Your biology, your chemicals,
just like,
exactly.
We're just like flesh and bone, and that's it.
I don't believe that. That's why I think I'm slightly more open-minded, because I reckon that we do have souls inside of us, and I guess that's tied to our consciousness. So I think kind of going into the life after death type of thing, I think our souls kind of contribute going back into like the universe, I guess. So not particularly like the universe as a god, not that sort of type, but like the actual like universe as in As in, you know how people say we are made of stardust?
Right.
Kind of going back into that idea, so you're kind of reborn back into the universe.
Well, so you're one of those ones where it's like you have the Big Bang and all that energy inside.
I think so, because it's all energy. I think we, maybe not souls, but energy, definitely. We are energy. Like if you think about it, even physically, like in the physics term, like we genuinely are like little electrons moving about inside of us, producing energy. That's what it is. So that's what we're made up of, I think.
What do you think about the concept of nothing?
It's quite a tough question. I don't think. So do you mean like in terms of a vacuum type of thing?
As in like literally nothing. Like, you know, like when before you were born.
Yes.
You didn't have consciousness. Right?
True. Yeah.
So pretty good. It's fine. That was nothing. before we were born.
Yes.
You had no consciousness.
Okay.
Like nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I mean. Like, what do you think about that?
It's quite a tough question. I've never like directly thought about that. So I think like, so when you're born, you're created, you're like a bundle of cells, and then the reason why you gain consciousness is because like you're fed energy from your mother. Like that's how you do it. That's how you kind of grow to become a conscious human. So I think just before you have consciousness, you are like a bundle of cells. I don't think you're nothing. You are still something because you're cells. And before that, you're probably like a sperm and an egg. So it's not ever nothing.
Right. So it's not nothing before you're born.
Yeah.
And probably that means it's not nothing after. Exactly.
And that's why you turn back into the energy that you were fed in the beginning.
It's kind of like a Buddhist.
In a way, yeah. Because I'm not particularly religious, so I like to look at it from like a scientific aspect. But like I really like listening to different people's ideas about that, because there's so many diverse like theories about life, which is incredible. I guess that's how I formed it, from listening to people. But
do you think that science is kind of reduced to that? Like, for example, I mean, religion is one example. We had art as another example. Do you think that people in this day and age, they kind of reduce science to like its own little box?
Of course.
And like, if so, what can you do to kind of break that perception and kind of make science more, suppose, interface more with like other aspects of life?
Yeah, so I agree with that, because if you think about it, people would have probably expected my answer to be like, no, we're just like a body, just chemicals. So I think the idea is like constantly looking at different topics, like reading on philosophy or watching videos on philosophy, just like opening your mind to all the different aspects and not closing it off.
For sure.
Because it is isolated as a subject in itself. People think, okay, science, that's it. You only like science and that's it. But then there are people who enjoy maybe like different sports and science. So they can do like a sports science type of degree. You know, it's about picking your interests and combining them. So maybe like biomechanics is a degree. Who would have thought that you could combine biology and like engineering? You know, things like that. So I don't agree with science just being confined to one space. Definitely promoting open-mindedness, maybe through different camps, being like, okay, this is a STEAM camp, not just a STEM camp, you know? Kind of giving activities and resources to open your mind, and looking at like all different religions as well, seeing how religion has improved across the years and how that intersects with science, because it does, majorly. Maybe not in the ways we think, but
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about aliens.
Aliens, okay.
Is there scientific proof for aliens?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I genuinely
expand.
Think so. Okay. Because I used to watch loads of like ancient aliens documentaries.
Ancient aliens?
Yeah, like there's this whole series on the Discovery Channel.
Okay.
Where my father and I used to sit down and we used to literally just watch them for ages. For example, take a look at Stonehenge.
Okay.
You cannot tell me somebody man-made did that. You cannot tell me we as an ancient species, without any sort of technology like wheelbarrows, or maybe wheelbarrows, that's about it, no cranes, nothing, made them so perfectly to stand up by themselves.
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's giants.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Giants. Okay,
Makes sense,
like,
right?
It does, but do you mean giants in the form of like aliens that came in?
No.
Just literal giants that exist.
No, I think that there have been giants throughout history. I think people have been hiding that shit.
That's
Basically.
quite interesting.
Yeah.
No, but then if you think about it, that could be true.
Yeah.
Because ancient people might have thought them as giants, but they could be considered aliens.
Yeah.
It's like, where did they come in from?
There's a Dutch explorer, and he wrote about this. This might get us banned off of YouTube, so I'm sorry. but there's like a Dutch explorer who went to like South America and he wrote about like the existence of these giant species. They were like 7-8 foot apparently, this big. And like the Dutch, this was when the Dutch became tall because they used to be short. So they became tall. This guy was like 6 foot and he was like looking up and like, wow, these guys are like 8 foot tall.
8 foot.
So maybe he was high, maybe he was, I don't know, but I believe him.
Okay.
So
And that's interesting because I think there's so many different like elements that people believe like that that could have just literally been like an extraterrestrial species. Yeah. Because like we don't know where they kind of came from. Yeah. We don't know if they were born here, if they, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, dinosaurs are wild.
That's another like insane.
I don't even know, like that's nuts. Yeah. I mean, I just think like they were probably just like massive lizards, weren't they?
Yeah,
so like,
exactly.
Why did they just come from that and then they went?
It's like evolution. I mean, I don't think evolution solves everything. Yeah. So you know how like Darwin's idea of we came from monkeys? Sure. It's a really good idea, but personally, I don't exactly believe that. I think there was like extraterrestrial influence.
Okay.
In our DNA.
Okay.
Because like, how would we have like jumped from monkeys to humans? Think about it. Like our conscious, it is pretty big in comparison to a monkey. Okay. So we have evolved that way, but with like an external influence. Yeah. That's my theory.
Great. If you like that, you should read about like the Sumerian creationists.
Definitely.
So,
I've heard about that.
Okay, you know about that. Yeah. So I think Assassin's Creed is based on. Have you played the game Assassin's Creed? So Assassin's Creed is a game where you're basically like descended from these like super beings. Okay. And they basically did their thing. They made like a superhuman, and then gradually those abilities were lost over time. But then there's like this hidden gene, and people over history catch it, and then they become like these, you know, superhumans that basically like can see through other people and can slow down time.
That's cool. If we could have that, that'd be incredible. But it's like all with the genes. Yeah. So if you think about it, like in our DNA, we have such weird cells in comparison to monkeys and to like apes and things like that. That it can't have just been evolution, because what would have simulated that? Right. Is what I asked.
So you think there's kind of like a prime mover, or maybe kind of like a separate factor that kind of...
Yeah, I think it's like an integrated factor. So it's not like sudden, like, okay, monkey, all of a sudden human. Right. It was like a form of evolution. So Darwin was correct in that idea. But I think there's more to it that we have yet to find out.
Yeah. So, let's talk about COVID. Okay. Because I actually read a study. Yeah. And so basically after COVID, a huge amount of scientific papers were written. And it was all because of COVID and basically like the mass hysteria around it. We've obviously had the pandemic for 2 years and we're kind of basically back to normal in this country. Yeah. Do you think that COVID, despite all of its, you know, terrible ills and obviously people have died and whatnot, do you think that there can be positives out of this, or at least we learn the lessons from it from a scientific perspective that we can kind of carry on into the future?
Definitely. I think going back to the idea of the boom of scientific papers, I'm reading a book called Vaxxers, and it talks about the production of the vaccine, like at Oxford University for AstraZeneca, because they partnered together. And you explore the scientist aspects of how they actually had to work tirelessly to even achieve funding for this, because they need like a commercial funding. You can't make like 1 billion vaccines in a tiny lab, you know? So they talk about how pre-COVID they were working on vaccines for Ebola and things like that. They did not have funding. Yeah. They could not find this sort of funding that they required. Right. But then all of a sudden, because it was a national emergency, a pandemic, international emergency, a pandemic, that's when the government finally like turned around. They created sort of schemes, different societies and different things like that, just to fund vaccine production. Yeah. So it was like a wake-up call in a way. So I think it was very much a positive in that aspect in terms of booming science. Now people are believing science, you know? Yeah. So after, like before, I guess, it was kind of like, okay, maybe like 5G is going to give us COVID, that type of conspiracy. Yeah. But I think after that, it's kind of, people are starting to listen to scientists more. And science communication is booming to promote the idea of like proper science and all. And yeah, I guess that's definitely positive. But another could be learning technology. If you think about it. When would Zoom and like Skype and all of these different, I mean Skype before, but you know, post-pandemic, we live in an online world even more so than before, because that was the only way to connect with people, you know? So I think that's definitely a positive. Yeah. But other than that, it has caused quite a lot of like chaos for people. Yeah.
For sure. I think the one thing about this COVID fiasco, especially in this country, is you realize that the government has money
Oh yeah.
for when they want to use it. Right?
Definitely.
And so do you find that quite frustrating when it's like, obviously we had like COVID and that happened and the government spent billions and billions of pounds. But then when it comes to like basic things like education and textbooks, even the government in this country is like, oh, sorry, we can't help.
Oh yeah, it's frustrating because these people, if anything, the people in power sometimes are frustrated themselves because they're kind of like by influence, you're kind of told what to do even as a prime minister, I believe. So it's kind of like the scientific department within the parliament right now, they're even struggling. Like definitely, you can tell because there's like allocations of budget in terms of money. So that's definitely a huge frustration. But I think it's been alleviated slightly more because of kind of COVID and the rush to create a vaccines, to immunize people. But yeah, definitely a massive kind of block. But I think it's being slowly alleviated.
Yeah.
So
yeah. What can they do to help you?
What can
they do? Like, as in, like, governments, funders.
Oh, okay.
This is the time to plug what you're doing. So I'm trying to.
Thank you. Promotion.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think it's through like funding our different camps and schemes because money can be put everywhere to good use, if that makes sense. So the only limit right now is fundraising, funding. So I think it's about kind of helping us with marketing, helping us like employ different professionals who can maybe even just act as mentors. Like not do it for us because I believe in the students for students, But I think like gaining mentorship, even creating like a bank of money that we can use as scholarships to bring
like
students. Like a fund, exactly. To allow students to come over to different countries, just to make the bridge, like the connection between the two countries. Because I don't want there to be kind of like two isolated nations. Yeah. We can definitely create like a connecting bridge or tunnel, however you want to call it, eventually. Yeah. So just like through marketing, kind of through different camps, through different societies, clubs we organise. Yeah. Basically.
Yeah. We asked this to everyone since obviously we're caring for students. And I know you haven't been a student that long.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Maybe you have, depending, I don't know. The students
since like year 6.
Since we went to nursery.
Nursery,
exactly.
that's true.
So maybe you do have a lot of advice. I was going to ask you, what advice do you have for students?
So that's quite like a general question. So I think in terms of like applications for university, if we're going to go like different routes, I think for that you need to kind of show your passions and build up kind of as much experience as you can. Do volunteering, even if it's for like 2 months anywhere. Just like to show your passions added on. And another one is utilize LinkedIn. It's like a general kind of piece of advice. Like please utilize LinkedIn because that is the most useful tool that I've ever come across. And like after my dad was like, okay, let's come on, start LinkedIn. I was always like reluctant to do so. Then after I did, I found all of these people, all of these connections, and Based in Science would not have grown as much if it wasn't for LinkedIn, I think. So, and kind of just not being afraid to share your passions. That's my last piece of advice. People might look down upon you and think you're like weird or whatever, but then in the end, you're going to turn out to be way more successful and achieve your goals faster than them because they're too busy with you. So,
100%. Okay. One last thing before we cut it, because I think we're on good time.
Okay.
Tell us, where can we find you? Where can we find Based in Science? How we can give money to you? How can we promote everything that you're doing?
Okay, so you can find me on like all social media. It's like at Ideja, Bajra, on like every platform literally. I'll be happy to connect with.
We'll put it on the thing as well.
Ching. Ching.
So I'll do that.
Thank you. And at Based in Science on every platform, the same thing. We're gonna like restart posting, so on there you can click on our links on our bio. That's where you can add fundraising money, anything like that, or even just visiting our website and kind of going, checking out what we do. Because, people like curious, checking out. And we'll be starting a YouTube very, very shortly where we're explaining all different scientific concepts. So if you want to help us with that,
any kind of content creators, YouTube guys, or girls.
All of it. Or girls, exactly.
Contact Ideja and let's make this thing big.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.